The Washington County Quorum Court is now called into session. Good evening, and I'm glad you're here. We will go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and have J.P. Lemming, will you lead us in prayer and pledge?
You're asking a lot of me. I'm going to try. Y'all bow with me. Father, we thank you that you have blessed us with a great responsibility as we are gathered here to have people elected by our friends and neighbors to make decisions which affect everyone in this county. Give us your grace and direction and help us to be peaceful when we disagree and to know what is right and best for all when we are thankful to live in a country where we, the people, still have a voice. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, J.P. Lemming. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. I think we have a couple of amendments.
Yeah,
Judge,
Johnson. I move to amend the agenda to add a discussion of the Quorum Court audio system under new business.
Okay, so that would be item 21. Well, we got, obviously, you guys motion to suspend the rules, got a second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, so item number 21 is a discussion under new business about audio-visual. Any other amendment? J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I would move that we add another planning item to the agenda and suspend the rules to consider it.
All right, so there's a motion to suspend the rule to add a
It's the one about
CUP.
It's about, these are not numbered. It's about solar field.
It's numbered at the top left.
Oh, 025?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
025, which is the solar field. So there's a motion on the floor to suspend the rules to bring on the ordinance of, what number is 025?
19-I-025.
Well, I have two of them for some reason.
Or they passed?
You got one? Have you got one?
Yep.
I'll share.
Yeah.
We can share it.
Okay.
Just share.
There should be,
It was on top.
you should have a bunch of them.
You have it? You guys have it?
I've got another one.
Yeah, I gave you all of them.
Oh, you gave me all of them. No wonder
Come on,
Okay.
share with this.
Pass them on.
How many?
You need one? Can't need one, two more. Thank you.
You got it.
There.
All right, so we have a
Should be
motion on
all.
the floor to suspend the rules to add item number 19-I-025, which is the emergency ordinance ratifying the CUP coming out of the planning. Oh, they still passing them? Okay.
I still have more.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think I have an agenda under here.
Does everybody have the item 025? Everyone have item 025? All right, so we have a motion to suspend the rules to add item 025 to the agenda.
Would somebody second it, please?
I have a second by J.P. Madison. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so that'll be item number 22. Any other amendments to the agenda?
Harvey does.
Where's J.P. Bowman? You have anything? Okay. All right, so we just will go ahead and adopt the agenda. I need a motion to adopt the
I so move.
as amended. We have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended by J.P. Ecke, seconded by J.P.
Second.
Duncan. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so we have the agenda as adopted as amended. Item number 4, preliminary motions. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we suspend the rules and read ordinances by title only.
There's been a motion to read by title only.
Second.
Has been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Item 5, citizen comments. Citizen comments, and we welcome you guys to come and visit with us. You have a 3-minute time frame. We got 15 minutes total. Come on. Tell us who you are and where you're from. Yes.
All right, well, hi, my name is Zoe Armstrong. I'm with the Washington County 4-H. Some of the JPs know me. Miss Suki Hires is also my civics teacher, so hi again. But I just wanted to come and thank y'all for coming out Saturday for the 4-H speeches and coming out and judging, helping with scoring and whatnot. So I just want to say thank you again for everything y'all do.
Thank you, Ms. Zoe.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Katie Teague. Do you need an address?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to introduce myself. We have a lot of new members on the Quorum Court. I work for the Cooperative Extension Service here in Washington County that oversees the 4-H program as well as a lot of other things. I guess a couple of things. One was just there was a change in staffing at the office. Bernie Kurtz has taken a position. He had been the previous staff chair for about 15 years, and he has moved to Little Rock, and he's the state horticulture specialist. So I'm serving as interim staff chair. Look forward to working with y'all. His position as a horticulture agent has been advertised. It was advertised for about a month, and we're hoping to do interviews next week, so hoping to get that filled quick. We also have a 4-H agent that is now going to the state to help with the state 4-H program. They're mining our people. And her position is also advertised, and so again, we're hoping to fill that soon. And Josh Bergstrom, who is our county extension ag agent, True Livestock Poultry, has been on military duty for the past 2 years, and we're looking very much for him to come back and serve with us in April. So just want to let y'all know that we're busy. We're trying to keep programs going, but just wanted to say hello, and again, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And then I guess last thing real quick, that rural profiles of Arkansas, I'd given a copy to the judge last week as it's just a handy resource, something that Extension puts out every few years. And so you all have that, again, as a resource.
They can pick them up at the extension office? Or,
they're already sitting around their
you
places.
pass
Yep,
them out?
Patty helped me
Perfect.
pass them
Great.
out. So
Thank you.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Rick Cochran. Live here in Fayetteville. A few friendly faces here and a lot of new ones. And that's the reason I'm here tonight, is to share a little expertise about conditional use permits. This is something that JPs are going to be dealing with here shortly and all the time, and it's probably the second most important thing you guys are going to do. They can be contentious. You probably have one that's going to be really contentious very soon. There's 7 factors that are to be considered, whether you pass or fail CUP. I passed that out so you guys can take a look at that by yourself, so I don't have to read that. I want to focus on the commentary that takes place during the hearings. It's important that each of you speak to the CUP up or down, plus or minus, however you feel it is, and give some good reasons for liking it or disliking it, how it fits or doesn't fit. Understand that the vote of the Quorum Court is final, but it can be appealed. So if either party decides to appeal, you're not going to go into that court and testify. Your minutes is your testimony that you've already testified. That information has been beneficial for us in the past in supporting our decision one way or the other. And I just felt like it was important that the new justices know exactly, that's important. Don't be afraid, speak your opinion. I don't think any of you probably are. You've already passed the hoop with your constituents and gotten yourself elected here. The other thing I want to stress on the CUPs is that the decisions of the CUP, the terms of the CUP are final. You can't go back and say, oh, I need to add this or I forgot that. It's done. It's a done deal unless it's appealed. So basically, the reason that I'm here tonight, I know what you're facing. I know what you're coming. I've sat in the chair and done this. I really feel like this one is going to be contested either way it goes. I'm not here to tell you which way to vote on it. But I do trust your collective judgment, and I want to thank you personally for all your years of service and your new years of service. Thank you so much. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Greg. Any other public comments?
Hello.
Good evening.
I'm Stephanie Foster, and I wanted to say a word on behalf of the Highland Community Neighborhood Association. We are so grateful for the work you do and the difficult decisions you make, and for the zoning process that protects citizens while still allowing our county to grow and prosper. You may be aware of the Highland Community Neighborhood's opposition to a proposal from Heritage Farms for a red dirt pit CUP that was denied by the Planning Commission last week. Heritage Farms has appealed the Planning Commission's decision, as is their right. You may have received impassioned and worried phone calls or emails from members of the neighborhood. If not, you will. We hope you will understand that while these voices are tinged with emotion, the neighbors are opposing this development based on the Article 10 criteria for allowance of conditional uses. The Heritage Farms dirt pit proposal fails to meet at least 4 of those criteria. The criteria that the CUP fails to meet are compatibility with the surrounding area, that it's not detrimental to or endangers the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare, that it will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the surrounding area, and that it will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding area for uses already permitted in the zone. Many neighborhoods can only guess how a proposed operation will affect their property based on these criteria, but our neighborhood knows. We know because we've been experiencing the effects of the Heritage Farms operation for quite some time. Since early fall, neighbors have experienced the noise of bulldozers and other heavy equipment and dump truck traffic on Draper and Greenboro Road as Heritage Farms builds roads and prepares for this proposed operation. We hope you'll hear our neighborhood as we reach out to you and understand that we aren't opposed to progress, but we are trying to protect the use and enjoyment of our properties for the rights allowed in the zoning code. The proposed dirt pit would profit one company, but at the expense of over 100 neighbors' health, safety, property values, and potential for property improvement and development. And we feel that that is not progress, but exploitation. So as our neighborhood reaches out to you, please feel free to ask any of us questions and have a conversation with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Foster. Public comments. Any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is Mac Childs. I've talked to several of you. I hope to talk to all of you before this is over with. I can't really improve a whole lot on what Ms. Foster just said, but I live very close to the ongoing illegal strip mine that's happening right now. So the developer's been working there for a really long time. He hadn't bothered y'all for a permit. He finally, after ADEQ told him he had to cease and desist, he decided after that that it was worth maybe getting a permit from the ADEQ. Immediately after they told him to shut down, he speeded up production. I appreciate what y'all do. You've got a lot on your plate all the time. No matter what decision you make for whoever, somebody's going to feel like they lost, and they're going to be a little bit miffed about anybody who didn't vote their way. But your job is very, very important because you speak for every single citizen of Washington County. The work that you do, if he doesn't need a permit to operate, well, what good is your job? How important are you? Is he treating you like you're important, or is he treating you like, well, as a last resort, I'll ask them if what I've been doing for months on end is okay? I would ask you to stand up for your job. I would ask you to stand up for Washington County. I'd ask you to stand up for the beautiful neighborhood this man's trying to destroy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Childs. Any other public comments? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, approval of the minutes. J.P. Bowman.
I just realized here, I've got a whole packet of these items about the elite training. Was I supposed to pass those out? I understand they were on the program for tonight.
If you wanted them on the agenda. But,
Yeah, I do want them on the agenda. I'm sorry. I guess that's what your suggestion was earlier. Oh, I missed it.
No, I wasn't, I didn't know if you wanted.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Patty sent that note out, so I thought it was included on the agenda without any suggestion.
Well, we already approved the agenda, so if you want to ask to suspend the rules and.
May I suspend the rules and ask it?
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
All right, so motion to suspend the rules to amend the amended agenda. It was seconded by J.P. Madison. All in favor? All right, now what is it you're adding on to it?
Well, it's the elite training, it's ordinance.
What number is it?
19 I 027.
Yeah, can everybody get a copy of it?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Me too.
What is this one? Elite. Okay. Everybody get a copy? All right, so that would be item number 23. Item number 23, and that's adding the conditional use permit for elevated elite. So we have a motion to amend the agenda, adding elevated elite. And a second? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so now we have the new adopted amended agenda. Yes.
I think since we changed the rules requiring a supermajority, I think you should be sure to rule that it was unanimous when you were doing these additions, so there's not a question as to whether something was validly
You want to go
added.
ahead and do a roll, Ms. Patty?
I was just.
Oh, was it
If you
unanimous?
just call
Okay.
it unanimous, I think that's good. I don't want to do a roll call.
Okay, so we're good. Unanimous, got it. Item 6, approval of the minutes. J.P. Madison.
I move approval.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor? Those opposed? All right. Item 7, judge's report. Well, first of all, again, congratulations to our new chairs. You guys have been knee-deep, got into your chair positions, already had committee meetings, your vice chairs. Thank you guys for jumping in there and taking care of your business. I also want to thank the JPs who have been out visiting some of the departments as well as going on road trips and visiting some of the roads and bridges in the county. The employees really, really appreciate that. And again, it gives you, I guess, hopefully a real appreciation of what's going on out there on those roads and bridges. So thank you for that. Some of you guys did get a chance to go by. We were preparing for the state to come by tomorrow and look at the CSU proposed place there at the former JDC. In that preparation, we said, hey, let's invite the JPs to walk by if they got an opportunity to come through and see it. Many of you guys did. If you did not, give Chief a call and we'll go ahead and walk you through it. We just want to give you guys a little insight to it before the state got a chance to walk through it. Again, as we prepare, the state will be the Department of, they changed their name, was DHS, now it's the Department of Provider Services and Quality Assurance. I guess they call it Deep Squad. But they're coming out tomorrow to kind of walk through it and give us some of their feedback, and hopefully within a week or so they will give us the green light that this is going to fit our bill. So we'll start work immediately on the crisis stabilization unit. Then we'll have to have them come back to certify the place that it is ready to open. Part of that is certifying the OGC, who is our service provider, who will be providing the services to our CSU. We're just facilitating the grant and housing the facility, but OGR Guidance will do the maintenance and do the day-to-day operations of that crisis stabilization unit. So the state will have to come back after it's all said and done, and we're saying we're ready to open, to come by and make sure that, again, all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and certify that OGC can go ahead and open that up. We're shooting for mid-June. My thought is the state will be moving pretty fast, because the big piece is we got 4 of these crisis stabilizations that's been granted awards to be open, and the governor is like, I need these to open so I can start capturing data. The CSU has been granted funding through June of 2021, and that was a concern. In fact, all 4 of us judges went to go visit with the governor in January because we thought the funding was ceasing. We got there, and he reassured us, and then he sent a follow-up letter that the funding will happen through June of 2021. But by that point, we have to have data from all 4 of the CSUs saying, here's what the numbers look like. Here we've been able to say there's been maybe some decrease in the numbers of going to the jail because they've been diverted going to the crisis stabilization unit. We've seen some decrease in our emergency room. So they need a lot of that data to turn around and give to the legislative body to say, we want to go ahead and continue to fund these. In fact, we want to open up more. Their goal is to have 8 in the state, but they can't get there until we get the 4 open. Right now, Sebastian County is coming up on being a year open. Pulaski County has been open a couple of months. Craighead has just got some funding to start building and getting theirs going. And again, here we are looking at them coming in tomorrow, the state, to give us the green light that we can go ahead and start building that out. So that's on the crisis stabilization unit. The last piece I want to talk about is the law enforcement side of this, and again, hats off to our law enforcement in the 4 county catchment area. They're the drivers behind the crisis stabilization unit. The whole Act 423 was built out of how do we help our mentally ill community, as well as divert our those individuals going to the jails. The law enforcement is the one who drives all of this. And so if law enforcement is not on board getting trained, crisis intervention training, then the CSU does not work. Sebastian County opened up and didn't have any law enforcement officers trained, and they struggled getting, trying to figure out how do we get people to come into the doors, and they started asking the state for some workarounds, going into emergency rooms and working in other health facilities. They now have law enforcement officers getting the training, and now it's picked up. Pulaski County is again starting to pick up their law enforcement. We have probably approximately, Chief Cantrell, I think we're probably knocking on the door 140 plus law enforcement officers in the 4 county area who's been trained, and they're ready to go. So they're just waiting for us to open the door. And the success of our crisis stabilization unit really will be because our law enforcement officers see this as a real valuable tool to help them in working with our community that have some those in crisis with mental illness. So hats off and salute to our law enforcement officers in the various areas and cities and counties. Your disposal report is in your packet. The planning board, we had this conversation that one of our citizens came and talked about the conditional use permit. Last month, we decided to have all ordinances come out of committees. In doing that, we didn't have our planning board in that position. And so right now, what that would mean is our planning board, when they grant a CUP, approve a CUP, then that would mean that it would go to a committee to come out of the committee before it comes to the full Quorum Court. My recommendation is that we continue to let planning board operate as they have, which is to take those recommendations that they make on the conditional use permit and go ahead and have them send it directly to the full Quorum Court as they have. Otherwise, we add more time to that applicant who's looking to do something with their farm or their land or what have you. But that becomes my ask to you guys. I would take a motion if that's what your pleasure is, but if you guys have something else. J.P. Madison.
Because the change was made in an ordinance, it would have to be made by ordinance, so we can't do it by simple motion tonight. But I think it would need to be a change made, but it seems like it might have to go to a committee first. I'm just saying.
Sure.
So.
And I hear that, and I think, and I take that, and so in the lieu of that, that's why we have tonight, I think, a couple of ordinances being added to the agenda because of that. So I will take a motion from someone to to change the ordinance and bring that to your committee, which I'm trying to know which one.
Do we need an ordinance?
Go ahead, J.P. Madison.
Excuse me. It seems to me we just need to ask the county attorney to draft an ordinance,
And then present it to.
and then it'll go to the appropriate committee.
Let's see, what was
Right.
that, the county services? Well,
That's
that's
who
where
heard the
originally
other
it was going to be going to the county service, but if we take it to the finance and budget meeting, that's where all you guys will be, and then you guys can do that as a committee at home with
This
that.
has to be voted on by the Quorum Court at a Quorum Court meeting.
So then that'd be next month's Quorum Court
So
meeting.
it'll go to finance.
Yeah. J.P. Harbison.
That still is going to delay the planning board. So cannot Brian write an ordinance and exempt the planning board that those CUPs come directly to the Quorum Court?
But you guys would still had to come before you guys to vote and say that that's okay. So,
Yeah, well, I'm making a motion to do that.
and that's what we'll have them
Is
drafted
that
up.
what he's working on?
I think here's where we are. So in March's Quorum Court meeting, you guys can vote on that. I think any planning, we'll have another planning, Nathan, our next planning board meeting is before or after Quorum Court, you remember?
Off the top, I don't remember.
So if we end up having a planning board meeting before you have before we have Quorum Court, then we may just do what you guys have done tonight, which is add it to the agenda to work through that. But then you'll have it at the Quorum Court meeting to approve or not. Go ahead.
28th.
Yeah, so it'll be after the Quorum Court meeting. So the planning board will happen after the Quorum Court meeting, yes. So we'll have the Quorum Court meeting, make that adjustment on the ordinance, and then we'll be ready to roll. Okay. That's on the planning board. Library board, I have 3 appointments. Work with mayors of Ms. Susan McCowan, Ms. Karen McCraddock, and Mr. Gary Ricker. I would need a vote of approval for them. And then there's been a motion to move the 3 candidates for appointment on the library board. It's been seconded by J.P. Harbison. All in favor? Aye. And those opposed? And then I have 1 planning board appointment, that's Mr. J. Piercy. And again, there was a motion. I didn't hear who did the motion. J.P. Pond and second by J.P. Madison. All in favor? Aye. And those opposed? All right. Lastly, there are still a few Black History events. We talked about that last month, some of the events, and hopefully you guys have been able to participate in some of the various things going on across the county, the Northwest Arkansas area. Again, thanks to the county employees and the countywide elected officials who put on continue to serve our county, but put on the annual county address last month. Again, the work that you guys do, ending out 2018 and kicking in quickly the 2019 is duly appreciated. The last piece I do want to make sure everyone is aware, if you haven't seen, there was a Department of Health alert about mumps being a breakout out there at the university, and so be careful, be cautious, look at your kids or people that you know who may be around in the university area. So it's out there, and so again, just want to raise that awareness. That is all I have in way of the county judge's report. Item number 7. I guess it would be 8. 8 unfinished business. That would be Justice Pond.
Yes, Mr. Lester, would you read number 8?
Okay.
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $232,397 from the jail fund 3017 to the jail 3017-0418 budget for 2019. And I'll just let you know that this is just on a second reading, so it doesn't require a vote.
And it is an item that originally was on the budget and somehow it wound up not being on there when we finalized it, so it needs to be brought back before us before it can be legally part of the budget.
Okay.
Move to suspend the rules and read the 3rd time by title only.
Second.
There's been a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only. Second by J.P. Ecke. Any discussion?
The motion's actually to suspend the rules and move it to a third reading.
Oh, do you want to advance it to a third reading, J.P. Pine? Okay, is that what you're seconding? Okay, advance to a third reading, okay. Councilman, you want to read it? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, go ahead and read.
An ordinance appropriating the amount of $232,397 from the Jail Fund 3017 to the Jail 3017-0418 budget for 2019.
All right.
Move to pass 8.1.
Second.
There's been a motion to pass the ordinance. Has been a second. Any discussion? J.P. Johnson?
Yeah, I'm new to county accounting, but we're taking this money out of a fund that has an unappropriated reserve of $0. And I'm not sure I understand how that works.
Is that on? I can't find it. I don't have a budget piece to look at and see. Do you have something? Is he here? Shannon, can you speak to that?
For the jail budget, their budget is about 900,000 over what the revenue is. So it's combined with general, so that deficit is covered by the general unappropriated reserve. So this would just add to the negative in the jail budget by the 230,000, and it would be netted with the general unappropriated reserves and come out of that.
Got it. J.P. Ecke? Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Judge. I do believe that their last Quorum Court meeting, I just put eye drops in my eyes, so excuse me, everybody looks kind of beautiful and fuzzy. But I believe that our treasurer did say that there's going to be enough money in the budget. If you could, Mr. Hill, would you elaborate on what you shared with us, that the anticipated returns?
That was anticipated, and that depended on bills coming in to pay for 2018's budget. So far, they spent $248,000, so they're only going to have like $130,000 added to their carryover going into this budget year.
Okay.
So it's still going to be about $100,000 short.
So it's going to be about $100,000 short and not the 200 and whatever the amount is.
Yes, unless a big bill comes in before the end of the month, and that would affect that.
End of the month being February, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if we anticipate anything. Sheriff, I don't know if you anticipate anything coming in.
And that's from the Sheriff's Department, correct? The big bill coming in, or that's countywide?
Talking about the jail?
Just the jail.
It's just the jail, but, you know, big bill that would come in, and if we don't really have one. Okay.
I don't think so, but
okay.
I can't be official until then.
Sure. J.P.
Okay.
Deacons.
Thank you.
Treasurer Hill, this carryover amount you're talking about, this carryover cash, are you saying that that is not included in that unappropriated deficit that we see of around 900 grand? My understanding was that is included in that number in that math. Could you correct me?
Carryover, my projection was $600,000 carryover for the jail, but it looks like they're going to have $730,000. Plus the $130,000 difference. It's not part of that 900,000.
It's not factored into that 900 at all.
It will be once you adjust the budget.
So I would add that back to the 900, and now I have a deficit of only 300, or you know what I mean, rough numbers, ballpark. Okay.
Any other discussion? J.P. Johnson.
Yeah, Mr. Hill, at what point are the carryover numbers firmed up on all of these account items?
You'll have an ordinance probably in March, next month. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Treasurer Hill. J.B. Deacon.
I am going to continue voice opposition into this spending. You know, I think when we create a budget as a county government, we kind of make a commitment to the people that that's what we're going to spend. You know, when I talk to my constituents, I think they get very frustrated that only in government do we make limits on ourselves, only not to behold by them. So I'm going to continue being in opposition by this. Now, I understand there'd be critical nature to some expenditures that we need to add into a budget, but my understanding so far is that we might have to endure some more repair expenses this year. We might not get the same state contract if we buy these vehicles next year. I don't really think that's critical or an emergency, so that's my take.
J.P. Pond.
I completely understand the concern with spending money on something that accidentally didn't get included in the final budget. But I will state again that we also have to be concerned about the transport drivers and the detainees that they will be transporting from the jail up here to the courthouse for trial and different things such as that. And if we don't do this in a timely fashion, and then we determine later that, yes, we need to do this for safety reasons, you don't want to be transporting the detainees from the jail up here to the courthouse and have some kind of mechanical fault. If we wind up doing that later, we very well may not be able to get the same deal on the transport vehicle. Therefore, by waiting, we will be spending more money if that does happen. Don't intend to argue with anyone about it. I'm just giving us a chance to go ahead and put this forth in order not for it to cost more. It's a pay me now or pay me more later, possibly. Thank you.
J.P. Matson.
Thank you, Judge. I'm going to support this because this was in the budget that we voted on last year. The sheriff and his folks did everything they were supposed to do to have this in the budget, and it was through no fault of their own that I haven't even been able to figure out what happened, that it wasn't included. It was when they went to spend the money, they were told, oh, that's not there anymore. And I don't think that's how we should do business. I feel sure that the full court that unanimously approved the budget last year thought this was in it. We had discussed it in committee. We affirmatively added it to the budget. So that's why I'm left a little bewildered that it wasn't there. We could get into a lot of things about last year's budget process. I'll leave that alone. But we owe it to the people that we told we were giving them this money. And if we're going to talk about balance in the budget and a lot of those issues, we're going to have to revisit a whole lot of other things in the budget. That's just, if we start with the sheriff, everybody else might as well line up. So we need to live up to the word and the commitment we gave to our law enforcement officers. Thank you, Judge.
Okay. Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Okay, Ms. Patty? We restating the motion that it's the ordinance appropriating the amount of $232,000 from the jail fund 317 to the jail 30170418 budget for 2019. Go ahead, Ms. Patty.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
No.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
No.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
No.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes. The ordinance appropriating the amount of $232,397 from jail fund 317 to jail 30170418 budget for 2019. Item number 9, JP Bowman, new business.
Yeah, Mr. Lester, would you read that, please, sir? Title only.
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board, and this is for the TNT Espresso.
Yep. I think this has already been advanced from the Planning Commission with due pass approval, and so I make a motion that we pass this to the full Quorum Court with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
There's been a motion to pass the ordinance, a second by J.P. Jenkins. Any discussion? J.P. Madison.
What is the espresso?
Somebody remembers better than me, tell them.
So there's a TNT diner out on 412 that you may have heard of.
Okay.
It's the same people that own that. They're open in a separate, close by, but not in the same building. They're open in a little coffee shop.
Espresso. They're going to serve espresso.
So we got motion second, discussion. Any other discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? All right, the emergency ordinance ratifying the conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board. Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
And so that one passes. Again, emergency ordinance ratifying the conditional use permit for the TNT Espresso. Item 10, J.P. Bowman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lester, please read it.
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board. This CUP is for the Gingham Daisy Bakery.
Now, I remember this one very well. This is a small bakery off out in the country to itself. Had some of our people went out and cruised around it, looked it over, and seemed to be no complaints from anybody. So I'd recommend that we pass this, make a motion to pass this on to full Quorum Court with a due pass recommendation.
A motion to pass?
Yes, pass.
And second by J.P. Ecke. Any discussion? Any discussion? J.P. Ecke?
Did you bring any samples?
I'm sorry?
No, he didn't. Did you bring any samples?
No.
No. Well, I
Any
have
other
to think about that.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? All right, so an emergency ordinance ratifying the conditional use permit granting the Gingham Daisy Bakery. Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Before I vote, I'm going to make a motion to quit hassling me. Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Willie Lemming. Ann Harbison. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson. Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance passed, and that's emergency ordinance ratifying the CUP for Gingham Daisy Bakery. Item 11, J.P. Harbison. J.P. Harbison, read again, say it again.
Would you read the title, please?
An ordinance changing the title of Deputy Circuit Clerk 2 in the Circuit Clerk budget to Executive Assistant / Jury Administrator for the Circuit Clerk budget for 2019.
We discussed this in finance, and it was passed out of finance. I make a motion that we pass 11.1.
Second.
There's been a motion to pass 11.1 and seconded by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? All right, Ms. Patty.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Okay, that ordinance passes. The ordinance changing the title of Deputy Circuit Clerk in the Circuit Clerk budget to Executive Assistant Jury Administrator for the Circuit Clerk budget for 2019. Item 12, J.P. Harbison.
Mr. Lester, would you please read 12.1?
An ordinance changing the title of 4 full-time positions and appropriating the amount of $7,252 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the Circuit Court 3 budget for 2019.
We discussed this in finance, and it was passed out of finance, so I make a motion that we pass 12.1.
There's been a motion to pass 12.1, second by J.P. Deacons. Any discussions? Any discussion? Public comments? Public comments. All right, Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Okay, item 13.1 passes. Ordinance recognizing the full-time position appropriating the amount of $7,252. Item 13, J.P. Harbison.
Mr. Lester, would you please read 13.1?
An ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $10,000 in the Animal Shelter Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $10,000 from the Animal Shelter Grant Fund to the Animal Shelter GIF budget for 2019.
Okay, this particular one we did pass out of committee. This just has to do with some grant money with ASPCA, Prevention of Cruelty of Animals. So therefore, I make a motion that we pass 13.1.
Second.
Motion by J.P. Harbison, pass 13.1, seconded by J.P. Madison. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Lester, would you please
All right,
read?
that 13.1 passes, and that's the ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $10,000 for the animal shelter. Item 14, J.P. Harbison.
Mr. Lester, would you please read 14.1?
An ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $325,000 in the Drug Court Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $325,000 from the Drug Court Grant Fund to the SAMHSA 2019-2020 grant budget for 2019.
This is a grant that Judge BOWMAN uses for drug court. I move that we pass 14.1.
There's been a motion to pass 14.1, second by J.P. Ecke. Any discussions? Any discussion? J.P. Yanez?
Just have a question. So is the person running this program going to be a part-time employee?
I didn't understand what you said.
So on the salaries, it's only listed as a part-time employee? Is the person running the whole program just going to be a part-time?
Well, this is just how she's using this grant money. There's a lot more to her program than what's listed here.
Great, thank you.
Any other discussion? Any public comments? Public comments? All right, Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Sure.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
And 14.1 passes ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $325,000 to the drug court grant fund. Item 15, J.P. Harbison.
An ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $14,411 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating $14,411 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the JAG grant budget for 2019.
This is one of those grants that the Sheriff's Department gets that really saves us money. I move that we pass 15.1.
Second.
The motion to pass and seconded by J.P. Pond. Any discussions? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? All right, Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
And item 15.1 passes. The ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $14,411 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund. Item 16.1, J.P. Harbison.
Okay. Mr. Lester, would you please read 16.1?
An ordinance recognizing additional revenues of $82,701 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $82,701 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the SCAP 2017 budget for 2019.
This is also money that we receive that's used in law enforcement. I make a recommendation that we pass 16.1.
Second.
A motion by J.P. Harbison to pass 16.1, seconded by J.P. Lemming. Any discussions? Any discussion? J.P. Hires and then J.P. Jenkins.
I just want to say I'm very uncomfortable with this particular piece of funding, in particular because I feel like it does, it incentivizes our participation in the 287G program, and for that reason, I am going to vote against it.
J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you. I agree with J.P. Hires on this, and if you read the wording, it does state that the money would be appropriated for certain types of costs due to the incarceration of illegal aliens. So that tells me that yes, it is money given to the state, given to us, but it is to be used for the incarceration of illegal aliens, which is, of course, seems like that would be in attachment with the 287G program, which I do not believe in. Thank you.
Any other discussion? J.P. Pond.
Yes, sir, thank you. I'll be voting for this. It's an issue where, and for the most part, the municipalities or the police departments bring us people that they're detainees, and I'm in support of having anyone, illegal aliens or anyone, being treated as fairly as they would me if I get out and do something that's going to cause me to be a resident at that facility. And I don't want to turn down any money that's going to help us support it. We're way behind on support for the jail now as it is, and I appreciate that our sheriff and our deputies do not turn their back on behalf of any persons in our county that violate the law, and they treat us all the same. Thank you.
Any other discussion? J.P. Harbison and then J.P. Ecke.
I agree that in principle, but I will be voting for this because we do need immigration reform. And I think that we need to let our federal representatives know that we need immigration reform, because we can't do anything about that. And we are, you know, and I know there are some stories out there that are heartbreaking, but we need to work on immigration reform with our representatives and senators. And if you feel really strong about this, I think, you know, that's where you need to put some energies. But I will be voting for this. Thank you.
J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. I do have a question on Article 2. It says it also funds the law enforcement grant fund to the small equipment line item in the SCAP 2017 budget. Small equipment would be, what?
He said flashlights.
Flashlights, that's right. Thank you for refreshing my memory, all of that. I'm supporting this because, in my opinion, being from South Texas, 7 miles from the Texas-Mexico border, and then we had the Rio Grande River separating my small town from Mexico. I know there's a lot of stories, but I also know that we as Americans try very hard, and it is our aim and our goal to treat everybody, regardless of ethnicity, fairly and equally and equitably under our laws. And I know that our sheriff and our sheriff's department and law enforcement from Fayetteville to Springdale to Tawnytown and everywhere else in between strives to do the same thing. So I'm supporting this because we do need funding. So thank you.
J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. You know, I've got a lot of Hispanic friends, and I think a lot of them. But you know, one thing we've got to realize, the sheriff has been very clear in the fact that the only illegal that he has down there are illegals that have committed a crime. And if it's a citizen for the same crime, they're going to be there just like the illegals. And we got to realize that we're going to have this cost to deal with, regardless of who they are or what the situation is. And so as far as I'm concerned, to refuse this money is just not very wise on our part. So I will be supporting it.
Any other discussion? J.P. Yanez.
Okay, so I was reading the criteria for this money, right? My only concern, we have the 287G program. It's for people that have committed a crime, right? So we want to keep everything honest. So this seems based on the criteria. I haven't seen the numbers, but a person has to be detained for 4 days, I believe, to be able to consider it for this grant. And so that's my only concern is, are we detaining people to receive this money? So.
There you go.
Yes, somebody come
One
ask
moment.
you a question.
Hello, my name's Kenny Yates. I'm the administrative captain on the detention side. I just want to make sure, I'll try to help explain this. This money has nothing to do with 287G. It's a Department of Justice grant that the Sheriff's Office has been receiving since the year 2000, which was prior to our participation in that program. So it has nothing to do with 287G.
Did it help you?
It just seems like an incentive now. So we have now 287G, which, right, it was prior to that.
Yes, ma'am.
But then it sounds like 287G is a way now to incentivize this.
Yeah, again, it has no relationship with 287G. Hypothetically, if the sheriff decided to get out of 287G, this grant money would still come in through the Department of Justice as long as the funding was available through them. I think Mr. Lester explained a little bit or touched on this a little bit at the last meeting, that this being a Department of Justice grant.
Okay, so can you explain the difference between this grant and then the 287G?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The difference between this grant and the 287G program?
I really can't explain any difference because it has nothing to do with 287G. The funding was there prior to our participation in that program. It has no bearing one way or the other on this money.
So if you remove from the statistics the undocumented
I'm sorry?
inmates, if you remove from the statistics the undocumented immigrants versus the legal residents, what would be the percentage of people that would be hold longer than 4 days?
I have no idea what that percentage would be. We typically don't hold someone on 287G on an ICE hold longer than 4 days. They have to do something with them. They have to lengthen their hold, but there's a certain time frame that they have to come get them and get them before a magistrate.
Which I believe is 24 hours, right?
I can't remember if it's 24, I believe it's 48.
Okay. I would love to see the numbers of how they flow with this grant, and then, not going to mention 287G because it's not, but just how is this either increasing or decreasing that 4-day hold with these inmates?
It has nothing to do with the hold period. The money has absolutely nothing to do with 287G or the amount of time a person is held.
I believe it said you had to hold an inmate for 4 days in order to be considered for this grant money.
I'm sorry.
Kim.
I believe I can help. Okay, come in.
My name is Jack Kimball. I'm the technology director for the Sheriff's Office. I actually do the data collection for the SCAP grant, and I have since its inception, approximately 2000, 2001. I don't remember the exact year. The way this grant works is let me rephrase that. The way I collect the data. The way I collect the data is I go through all the inmates that are booked in during their time frame that they throw in there. I evaluate the number of days that they've been in there and look at their place of birth, status, things like that, and use that to make a determination on whether they're possibly undocumented or improperly in the country. We then eliminate the criteria of the people, which the other criteria is they have to be convicted of a felony or at least 2 misdemeanors to qualify for this grant. We then take all that data and submit it to the federal government, to the Department of Justice. They then evaluate that list and then make a determination on how much money they want to give us. As far as your question specifically, does that incentivize us to keep people longer? Nobody who makes those decisions about when people get out even have anything to do with the collection of data. I do the collection of data myself, and I don't have any decision in who gets released or who doesn't. We just do that. And as far as the 287G, this incentivizing us being part of the 287G, it's actually the opposite. We do not get paid or cannot get paid twice by the government. So therefore, by participating in the 287G, it actually lowers the amount of money that we pay or get paid on this grant. And so therefore actually brings in less money to the county because we can't get paid twice. If we're already getting paid by the federal government for that person, they don't qualify for this particular grant, this particular program.
I think we're going to become best friends because I love stats, right? It takes away the emotion. Awesome. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Kimball. You got something for Kimball? JP Madison?
Yes. So my understanding was that the only way that we ever ran someone's immigration status was because of 287G. So I don't know how we get the data for compliance with this grant without complying, because it specifically says that this is to cover costs due to the incarceration of illegal aliens, which it would be better if we called them undocumented, as JP Yanez has pointed out. So you're telling us it's not related to 287G. Based on everything I've heard over the past year about 287G, I can't understand how it's not connected, because we wouldn't even know if we were incarcerating an undocumented person if we didn't run them through the system that were provided because of 287G. So how do we ever have the statistics to comply with this grant?
We don't. We don't actually run them. The names that I submit, I do not run through this 287G program. We do not run them through immigration or anything else. And we've been doing this since before 287G existed. Basically what I'll do is I'll go through the questions that we ask the detainee. Were you born in the country? Where were you born? And are you a U.S. citizen? Self-reported information that the detainees give us at booking. We then take that information and compile a list of potential people we submit that to the Department of Justice. They do all that evaluation, not us. We never actually run those people as far as in their immigration status or at all. We just use their self-reported information, and we give that to the Department of Justice, and then they run them and figure out whether they're undocumented or not, based on the information we give them.
Then explain to me how we're incarcerating undocumented people that don't get caught up in 287G, because I thought that was, because one of the things is that when I've talked to the sheriff and others about 287G, because I was concerned what it was costing us, I was very clearly told it doesn't cost us anything, because if someone gets hit by 287G, they immediately become the Fed's responsibility, and so they're out of our facility and they're not our expense. So how do we need $82,000 to reimburse us for the incarceration of undocumented people if we're shipping them all to the Feds and making it be the Fed's expense?
Not all the undocumented people actually get detainers placed on them and are actually taken in, by the Feds. And plus...
Well, that's a bad deal.
If that's the determination they make.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
the Feds make that determination, not us. And so, as part of this program, the person might actually be incarcerated for some time before they're even evaluated, or in the case where they're not, a detainer is not placed, they're still determined as being undocumented. So the federal government gives us this money.
Well, I think if the Feds want them held on some kind of immigration thing, it should be the Fed's expense 100%. So, thank you.
Any other discussion? J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. I just have a quick question. I want to be sure I understood. It's only people who have a previous felony conviction or 2 previous misdemeanors?
They have to have a felony conviction or 2 misdemeanor convictions in their criminal history. In some cases, it's that current arrest, and in other cases, it's previous arrest or some other time. Yes.
But could they be currently being in the jail for a much lesser offense? I mean, we keep hearing about people getting pulled over for bad taillights and ending up in 287G. I don't think it happens, but I've heard those stories.
Yes, potentially they could have a minor offense now and have been a convicted felon, and they spent a week in our jail because the judge sentenced them to a week in jail or a month in jail. That is the time that we would get reimbursed from the government under this grant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball, Officer Kimball. J.P. Yanez.
Can you explain the process? So when someone's arrested, right, sometimes they don't have a driver's license. When they go into the jail, is there anything that's ran prior to the self-identifying as a U.S. citizen? Because I know for a fact some people might lie about that, right? So now you're self-identifying as a citizen. What process are you running these individuals through?
I don't work in the jail and haven't in quite some time, so I may not be 100% accurate in how, and I definitely don't know how they run the 287G program as far as those evaluations. But what the things we'll do, if there's any prior history, if the person reports their name's John Doe and their date of birth is this, and we've booked in John Doe before, we can look up their booking, looking up their mugshot, that's not you. Right. That's one of the ways we can do it. When we run them ACIC, we're able to get some information, kind of try to figure out who they are. All Class A misdemeanors or higher are required for us to do fingerprints on, automated fingerprint system, and in which case, if that person has ever had a fingerprint, the state police will kick back and go, no, that's not John Doe, that's this gentleman here. So those are all different ways we can do that. In an odd case that we've had no contact with that person, we have no way of verifying, they don't have a driver's license, they don't have any source, there is potentially times when they could get out with giving us false information. It is possible. We're not omnipotent. We were not able to know 100%. But there are a few little things we can do as an investigation to try to identify them properly.
Okay, so just clarification. So the 2 misdemeanors and the felony would pretty much identify this person as a document.
If they had a previous felony or provided the 2 misdemeanors were a Class A. And then a lot of times we fingerprint more than just those, just to make sure they are who they say they are. But those for definitely by law are required that we fingerprint them.
Right.
J.B. Bowman.
Yes, thank you, Judge. I'd just like to say thank you to our enforcement people for bringing this kind of information to us. I've learned a lot tonight, so thank you.
With that, public comments.
Thank you, Judge.
My name is Brandy Weaver, and I'm from Prairie Grove, Arkansas. The first thing is I have a little bit of an issue with the wording because I don't think it's correct to call any human being an alien. We need to word it to where it's an undocumented persons or undocumented immigrants rather than being worded as an alien. I just don't think that's humane. I do kind of have a little bit of questions about it, like say somebody gets pulled over for DUI, they don't have license or anything on them. Typically, a lot of times a DUI, they're let go within 24 hours or less. I know of a case where it was 7:30 a.m. and they were out by 4 p.m. So what if that person has a background, a criminal background, but they're only arrested on a DUI, are they going to continue to hold them for 4 days just to get those funds when it's something that small? That's just kind of one of my personal ethical questions of how that's going to work based off the information they have. And I don't like the fact that we are a part of the 287G because we have had cases to where American citizens were apprehended by ICE. And that is an issue for me because my son is half Hispanic. And that's kind of an issue I have, hearing stories of like the Marine. I don't appreciate the fact that our county participates in 287G.
We got public comment at this. Okay, thank you. Public comments, sure. I'll come back to it after the public.
Thank you for taking my comment, Judge. I'm Gladys Tiffany from Fayetteville, and I'm just so excited that several new JPs, or I don't know whether you're all new or not, but several JPs have really good questions about the 287G program. I think that this is something that all of us need to know a lot more about, and I really do appreciate how much you have already added to the conversation about it. And I just want to point out that our sheriff department, I think we want to believe that they are doing the very best job that they can, but there have been a number of situations where we have documented stories where people who have been arrested, have been sent into detention, really were not those felons and desperate criminals that they've been portrayed as, and taking that seriously into consideration and realizing that the court has a serious duty to be aware and observe carefully what our officials are doing is an important part of your job. So taking that role as seriously as I hear you beginning to do, I'm just really pleased. I really do thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gladys. Any other public comments? Okay. Who had the motion? Was that J.P. Harbison? And it was seconded by J.P. Lemming. Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez. No. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
No.
Andrea Jenkins.
No.
Suki Hires.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
Didn't get enough votes to pass this time, so it'll be on for a second reading.
So did not pass, so we'll go to the next month for another reading. So that ordinance did not pass. Item 16.1, the ordinance recognizing the additional revenues of $82,000. You need a supermajority, so it will go to the next reading in March. J.P. Harbison, item 17.
17.1.
An ordinance anticipating additional revenue in the amount of $21,000 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund for 2019 and appropriating $21,000 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the FY 2018 STEP Grant Fund for 2019.
This is another law enforcement grant that we apply for yearly, and it's $21,000 this year. It's called the STEP program. I move that we pass 17.1.
A motion to pass 17.1, seconded by J.P. Madison. Any discussion? J.P. Yanez?
What is the STEP program?
J.P. Madison.
I know,
J.P.
know.
Madison.
Yeah, so STEP is federal funding that comes through the state for increased enforcement of DWIs and seatbelt offenses. So it incentivizes law enforcement to arrest for some of those little minor offenses that might otherwise not get attention.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Dickens.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
You missed Butch.
Okay. That's enough to pass. And so item 17.1, ordinance anticipating additional revenues of $21,000 in the law enforcement grant passes. Item 18, J.P. Harbison.
Okay, this is,
Mike.
Brian Lester, will you please read the title of the ordinance?
An ordinance anticipating additional revenue in the amount of $23,400 in the HIDA Grant Fund and appropriating $23,400 from the HIDA Grant Fund to the HIDA 2018 G18 GC 0004A budget for 2018.
Okay, I move that we pass 18.1, HIDA's high-intensity drug trafficking money. So it's another one of those grants that we receive money yearly.
There's been a motion to pass item 18.1, second by J.P. Ecke. Any discussion? J.P. Yanez.
Sorry, I need to learn about all this stuff, but what does this one do?
Actually what it says.
This is the
I'll let-
high-intensity drug
It's-
trafficking.
Drug from the Sheriff's Department, will you help us out, please?
There we go.
It won't-
Here we go. We got
It's a task force.
Mr. Rick, good evening.
Good evening. I'm Major Rick Hoyt, the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Washington County administers a HIDA grant that actually several agencies participate in, and Washington County is kind of a pass-through agency for some of this money. What Washington County gets out of it is we can use the funds for overtime, for highway interdiction efforts. We haven't even done that the past year. We didn't have anybody available to do it. We didn't have enough officers to do it. But it's also used for drug buy money for some of the local task forces and for equipment and training.
And it's about, again, you said a number of agencies, a number of cities and counties participate.
Well, there's several agencies, and I'm not in charge of this grant at our agency, so Ms. Lloyd would know more about this from the grants office, who all participates in it, but I understand Pulaski County participates in it, and Pine Bluff, and Washington County, and this is through the DEA, and it's headquartered out of New Orleans, and this is something the sheriff lobbied for several years ago to reach out and get this region designated as a high intensity drug area because of our interstate and because of all that was going on. And they finally granted some money to this area so that we can concentrate on that.
To help you, JP, on this? Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
All right, that ordinance passes. The ordinance anticipating additional revenues for the HIDA grant of $23,400. Item 19, J.P. Harbison.
Read 19.1, Mr. Lester, please.
An ordinance appropriating $250,000 from unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the Buildings and Grounds budget for 2019.
Tour of the CS where we're going to put our crisis stabilization unit, and this money is to be used to renovate that building. And I am so glad that we are almost there.
Amen.
I move that we approve $250,000 to build this CSU unit.
Second.
Been a motion and a second by J.P. Pond. Item 19.1, any discussion? J.P. Hires.
I just want to say I'm absolutely in support of this. I'm very excited about it, but I am really concerned with how this was handled initially. We've had a lot of conversation here about transparency at the Quorum Court, and this is another instance where a lot of people on this court at the Budget and Finance meeting, not the Budget and Finance meeting, the jail meeting, had a lot of information, and a lot of us were completely left in the dark. I'm concerned that 24 hours later, less than 24 hours later, we had a complete ordinance to fund it. Again, I'm totally in support of this. I'm pleased with what I saw on the tour today, but I would like to ask the court to do a better job of giving information, that we should all have had the information that people had last week. I'm in support of this. I just want to say going forward, we need to do a better job.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
And item 19.1 passed, the ordinance appropriating $250,000 from unappropriated reserves for building and grounds. Item 20.20, which would be J.P. Harbison, the resolution.
Okay, Mr. Lester, would you read 20.1?
A resolution authorizing the submittal of an application to the Arkansas Unpaved Roads Grant for road improvements on Ballard Creek Road, which is Washington County 76.
This is a grant that'll come to the road department. Actually, Harvey Bowman found this money several years ago, and we've been able to dip into this pot, so to speak, and I'm glad. $75,000, not anything to sniff about. So I move that we pass 20.1.
Been a motion to pass 20.1. It was seconded by J.P. Madison. Any discussion? Any discussion? J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Ms. Harbison. I appreciate that. Guys, I think there's a lot of opportunities out here for us in this area yet. This is the third one that we've received like that, and it looks like there's going to be continuing opportunities for additional grants on an annual basis. We're also working some other sources there that are very concerned about water quality. And Mr. Gales and I have had other meetings with these people, and it looks like we may be moving toward some agreements that's going to give us a lot more money for this kind of work. So that work is still ongoing. Thank you, Ms. Harbison.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments? Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
And the resolution passes, the resolution authorizing the submittal of an application for the unpaid road grants. And make sure I just say publicly, thank you, Ms. Sharon Lloyd and your department for the ongoing work with everybody around the county on these grants. We have item 21, item 21, that would be J.P. Johnson. Discussion on audiovisual.
Yes, thank you, Judge. I would like to move that we give the county judge approval to proceed with bidding for an upgrade to our audio system, and so that we can get the bids, and if we deem it appropriate, we can authorize them later to upgrade the system. If there's a second, I'll be happy to discuss why.
There's been a motion to authorize a bid for audiovisual to upgrade our system here in the courtroom. A second by J.P. Madison. Any discussion? J.P. Johnson.
Yeah, Judge, this is a topic that's very dear to my heart because I have a very, very severe hearing loss. It's taken 5 meetings in this room for the IT people and Miss Patty and myself to figure out how to make this system work for me. I can hear real well if the mic is not keyed. I can't hear a thing if the mic is keyed. In addition to that, we may not be in compliance with the American with Disabilities Act. The system fails. If you were at the Planning Commission meeting last Thursday night, we had people in the back of the room shouting because they couldn't hear the planning commissioners talk. They couldn't understand the vote that was taken. But you can go out in the other room, you can go out in the lobby, and you can hear everything fairly well. So I think we at least, and one more thing, if you go on the YouTube video and watch us at these meetings, unless the people are speaking directly in the microphones today, we might as well not do a video because you can't comprehend it. So if we want the public to know what we're doing with that method, we need to do something about the system, and I think we at least ought to let the judge go get bids, get proposals, and let us look at them and decide if it makes sense.
Excellent. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, J.P. Johnson, for bringing this forward. I think it's been something that we've needed for a long time. Former J.P. Cochran is here. He will remember talking about a lot of these technology issues for several years now. I think we've been hesitant because of the expense, but I think you've pointed out that it's worth whatever expense it is, not only for us to hear, but for the people in the audience to hear and for the people at home to hear. I will say that I have seen some more sophisticated systems. Well, most systems are more sophisticated, but we also won't appear quite as bumbling, like reminding each other to turn on microphones, because the chair will, there's systems where the chair controls that once the judge recognizes us to speak, he will turn on the mic, and so we're assured that we're all speaking into the microphone. Furthermore, he will be able to see when we're seeking to speak, and so he can do a better job of keeping track of who's next, and so it will make it easier for the presiding officer, whether it's committee chair or the judge as well. And I would just like for our meetings to go a little smoother for the people, because sometimes I'll look out and they're sort of chuckling at how we're all, we're poking each other to turn on microphones and stuff. And so anything that will make us look like we know what we're doing a little bit better would be great. So thank you for bringing this to us.
Any other discussion? JP Aki.
Just one more. Former JP Alicia Devons just said, I had to turn up my volume. Would you speak louder? So former JP Rick Cochran and Alicia Devons, we hear you. We're turning up the volume. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion by JP Johnson, a second by JP Madison. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And we'll start working on those bids. Item 22. There was just a motion on that one. Judge, come and talk to us.
Thank you, Justice Johnson. I have a request that, could we have your old equipment at juvenile court? Because we have 2 microphones. Justice Madison's filled in for me before. We have 2 microphones and then 2 that work by a little AA battery. And so when we have, 8 attorneys and witnesses, so if we could have your old equipment, just putting in a request. Thank you.
Duly noted. We'll make that happen.
Very quickly, Judge. Yeah. Before we had this, it was bad. This didn't make it any better. Okay?
Got it.
Eva, you're right. We look like clowns out here sometimes, trying to turn it on, turn it off. It's been cranky since it was installed. I implore you for all the folks that are coming to do. Robert Dennis was seated next to me. He had a hearing problem and he had trouble. He had a way to hook in his earphone and all, but he still had trouble with it. So, Lance, I feel your pain, so to speak. Please look into it. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we got that passed. Item number 22, JP Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. Mr. Lester, would you please read this ordinance that had a number of 025?
Yes, ma'am. An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board, and this CUP is for the Fayetteville solar field.
Yes, this was passed unanimously out of planning the other night, and Mr. Peter Nierengarten is here from the city of Fayetteville. Or he was here. There he is. In case there are any questions, or if you'd like to tell us briefly a little bit about it, Fayetteville has made a commitment to greatly increase its reliance on non-fossil fuel energy, and they're planning to put solar panels at both sewer treatment plants, and one plant, the east plant, is actually in the county rather than in the city. It's in the city's growth area. So let Peter explain it better than I can. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, JP Madison and members of the Quorum Court. Can you hear me okay? My name is Peter Nierengarten. I'm the Sustainability Director for the City of Fayetteville. And as JP Madison mentioned, we've been working on 2 large solar arrays to be installed at the city's 2 wastewater treatment plants. One of those plants is on the west side of Fayetteville inside the city limits. The other plant is on the east side of Fayetteville outside the city limits on the bank of the White River near the Wyman Bridge, if you know where that is at. We are working with Ozarks Electric, who is the utility company that provides electricity to both of our plants, and Today's Power Inc. They're the solar installer to install 5 megawatts of ground-mounted solar arrays at the east side plant. That solar array will have a tracking system that will actually track the sun. It'll also have 12 megawatt hours of battery storage located at it, and it will offset 100% of the electricity that is consumed at the wastewater treatment plant. For those of you who have had the opportunity to visit one of our wastewater treatment plants, you may recognize there's lots of pumps and motors. There's a significant amount of electricity that is consumed at those facilities, and so the ability to offset 100% of that with these solar arrays is pretty exciting. It helps us realize a couple of goals that were passed at the City Council last year regarding clean energy, energy independence, and cost savings. And so one of the really exciting things about this particular project is it not only helps us recognize our clean energy goals, but it's also helping the city save money to the tune of I'm forgetting the number per year, $180,000 per year of energy savings will be recognized by the project, and over the 20-year life of the project, it's going to help us save over $6 million. And so we're very excited about it. We appreciate the partnership we've had with the county in getting this project permitted, and we're very excited moving forward. And if you have any questions about the project, I'm more than glad to answer those questions.
J.P. Madison first, and then we'll go to J.P. Madison and J.P. Bowman. J.P. Madison.
Let me make a motion first. Okay, I would move to pass
Okay.
this ordinance.
In a second. All right. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I fully support this. I have a procedural question for our county attorney. So because of the questions that arose after the planning board meeting last week, where some people were concerned that that appeal would be on the agenda tonight, I looked at county code, and it says that we couldn't set a hearing before the 30-day appeal period had run. So I was curious how we're able to do these as quickly as a week later. Can you help me there?
So your code states that even if you, the ratification states that even if you ratify one of these, and this is how it's always run, even if you ratify it, it doesn't affect the appeal process.
Okay.
So if it is passed even by the Quorum Court and the 30 days hasn't run, the applicant or people that are opposed to it are still able and still have every right to appeal. We're just kind of in like a limbo.
Okay. Well, and I didn't, not that I'm hoping for an appeal or anything like that at all. I just wanted to make sure we were authorized to do it quickly, since I was reminded of county ordinance last night. Thank you.
It was J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. Excuse me. I'm a little surprised about that much savings. I understand that solar is becoming far more efficient all the time, but my impression has been that it's still more expensive than other sources of energy. Can you explain what situation is that, a tax deal, or what's the situation that saves that much money?
So the solar developer, Today's Power Inc., and they're here tonight if you have specific questions for them. They will be leasing the property from the city of Fayetteville, and then we will be buying all of the electricity that the solar array produces. Mm-hmm. And we have a 20-year agreement that our city council executed back in November with them that agrees to purchase the electricity at a rate that is slightly less than the rate that Ozarks Electric traditionally sells electricity to us at. Mm-hmm. And so it's a fraction of a cent, but when you multiply that over 18 million kilowatt hours per year that the solar array will produce, mm-hmm. It adds up to that $180,000 per year. And it's a combination that we're able to achieve that through a combination of the fact that, yes, solar prices have come down significantly. Battery storage prices have come down significantly. The size of this array allows us to achieve some economies of scale. And yes, as you indicated, we are, the solar developer is taking advantage of the federal tax credits that are available on this project.
Would it be appropriate to ask the supplier of this equipment? The provider of the solar equipment.
Today's Power.
Sure, yeah.
Today's Power.
Certainly.
Okay, it's on there. Okay, thank you.
No, Neil Garden, he was just saying, who is it? It's Today's Power. What's the name of the group? It's Today's Power.
Yeah, Today's Power Inc. Would you like for them to? Would you like for?
No, he wanted to identify who it was.
Yeah. Okay.
J.P. Pine.
Today's Power. They're out of Little Rock. And they're the solar developer on the project.
Well, here in the county, I know our chief staff has been looking at some solar issues for some other locations of our facilities. And if you found that kind of efficiency, I wanted to see if we might find something that would be appropriate for the county.
I would suspect they would be more than glad to visit with you all about opportunities at your county facilities.
He's had a number of people after him already.
Yeah, most definitely.
J.P. Pine.
Are these the two facilities, are they same size or very similar?
They're pretty close in size. The facility on the east side that's in the county is one contiguous array, and if you know the Wyman Bridge where the road goes across, and then there's a bend in the road near the city's biosolids facility. It's going to be located just to the southeast of that intersection there, and the facility at the west side plant is actually separated by a couple thousand feet in two locations on property we own off of Broyles Road.
Located on city farmland?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Approximately how many acres does that panel facility, do you know how much?
Let me see here, I've got that. It's about, I believe, 49 acres is what we are leasing to Today's Power for the array. And that'll be the boundary of the fence. The panels will be something smaller than that. I'd say somewhere in the 35 to 40 acre range. But 49 acres is what we're leasing to them. We own approximately 1,200 acres at that East Side wastewater treatment facility and farm.
Appreciate you doing this, the real people. Sometimes this is not really a peak type provider, but you're having this in place during peak times in the summer will help some of the other peak issues.
Absolutely. That's one of the benefits of the tracking system. Allows the system to track the sun, and so on those hot summer afternoons, the panels will be pointed directly at the sun and will allow us to achieve some of that peak production and peak savings.
That'll help Ozarks Electric not have such a heavy load. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Any other? J.P. Harbison.
I want to, understand what you said because I thought this was kind of unique. So the company comes in and the city really does not own the solar system. You just buy the electricity from them, just like you would Ozark Electric.
That is correct. Yes, we have a tri-party agreement that our council executed back in November between the city, Today's Power, the solar developer, and Ozarks Electric that allows all of this to work together on city property that we are leasing to Today's Power.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the county will benefit as well, and I think when you look at the schools will be the primary benefactor.
I think, anyone who is a customer of Ozarks Electric will benefit because this project is allowing them to trim some of their peak power purchase needs. So in the summertime when it's hot and air conditioners are running, they're having to buy power out on the market, and that electricity is expensive. And so the battery storage combined with the ability to track the sun and produce as much as possible will help lower that expense to Ozarks. They can then pass that expense on to their members. Their service territory is quite large in Washington County.
Good. Any other discussion? Okay, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. Thank you for that wonderful explanation.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Who was the second? J.P. Madison. J.P. Madison. Any other discussion?
Can I just talk a little bit more?
You want to talk about it more? Okay.
Not at length, I assure you. I want to first explain to my colleague J.P. Pond that I knew this was in your district, but I didn't know how to communicate with you about it. So Peter and I have been friends for a very long time, is why he called me. So I hope you don't take any offense. Okay, thank you. I want to say that in addition to the savings for the city, this is the right way to do business these days. Under Judge Wood, the county has been a real leader in installing solar panels on county buildings with Mr. Gonzalez, and he knows how excited I am that he's done that. We can't continue to use up fossil fuels and et cetera. This is our future. And a few years ago, I put some panels on my house, and I'll be happy to share my electric bills that I'm very happy about. So I would appreciate a good vote on this. Thank you.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any public comments? Thank you, Mr. Niergarten. Appreciate it. Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Judith Yanez. Yes. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
Yes.
Susan Cunningham.
Yes.
All right, item 22 passes. That's the item 0125, the solar fields. And item 23, J.P. Bowman, elevator
Mr.
leak.
Nestor, would you read that, please, sir?
An emergency ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit granted by the Planning and Zoning Board. And this CUP is for the Elevate Elite Training Academy.
Okay, guys, I wasn't able to participate in this meeting publicly, here in the public, but I did watch it online. This sounds like a nice facility that they're trying to build in Farmington. There's a lot of opposition by neighbors, but there's been no complaint filed. So I'm going to recommend that we pass this on to the whole Quorum Court with a do pass recommendation.
We're already court. You just want to pass it.
Okay, that's right. I'm sorry. We are the court. I'm recommending we pass.
So we got a motion to pass item, pass an elevated lease. And a second by J.P. Washington. Any discussion? J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you, Judge. I live in Farmington, of course, and this is actually, the location of this facility is actually on Sam Duncan's in his district. However, I did come attend the meeting, and I had a lot of friends and neighbors who attended and stood up and passionately spoke against this particular facility. It's a cool idea. They just don't like the spot, the location. It's a very rural location. There's a lot of farmland out there. The lot that was purchased is right next to and around homes where people have retired and purchased that land to retire. They mentioned areas of the CUP. If I can find that paper. Let's see, Section A, number 4, 5, 6, and 7 were discussed on this piece of paper that you have from the CUP. I would say about 15 to 20 people stood up and sat in the aisle over there during the planning meeting. Some of you were there and you saw that. They were very passionate. Some of the areas that they were concerned about was it is a very dark and narrow, thank you very much, a narrow road. And so they will have 5 courts and they will have 64 parking lots, and it's one of those travel facilities for travel ball, baseball, and basketball. There's concerns that wasn't enough parking, so they have an overflow parking lot that's about a half a mile down the road that they want to use shuttles to bring back and forth. Like I said, no one was against the actual facility, and it's an actually exciting idea, but the location is not desirable for the residents in Farmington. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Any other discussion? J.P. Duncan?
I received 2 calls on this actually earlier this week, and I didn't realize it was going to be added. Obviously, it was added at the end. So I would prefer to wait. I haven't actually had a chance to see the site. I learned about this Tuesday afternoon. So would love to get the chance to go out there and actually speak with those in my district and better understand it before voting. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you, Judge.
Any other discussion? J.P. Pond?
I'd prefer that this particular one wait. I came to the meeting, I heard the protests, and the protests were about the location, not the facility itself. Actually, one individual spoke up of a property probably within a mile of there that was on Highway 62, a road that would better facilitate the ingress and egress and might not necessarily even require off-location remote parking and a shuttle system like they're going to have to employ at this area. I saw enough negative talk about it to assume or have the idea that it was not necessarily compatible with that particular neighborhood. I did have concern about the road not being able to accommodate that kind of heavy traffic. Possibly just that it not being compatible with that neighborhood might be enough reason to vote no, but I'd rather have the court have some time to look at this, so I will abstain. Thank you.
J.P. Washington?
Thank you, Judge. I just have a question because as I'm reading through here, it says that a total of 26 notices were mailed to the surrounding property owners, and of those, only 12 were opposed and the rest were in favor of the project. So to me, it seems that a majority were actually in favor. So I would just ask for more clarity on what exactly the problem is with that particular neighborhood. I just don't understand that. If the people that live there, if a majority of the people that the notices were mailed out to do not have a problem with the facility, then what is the, I don't live there, I'm not even familiar with the area, but I would just be curious to know, or would like a little more clarity on what the problem is.
Nathan, you want to kind of do a brief summary from the planning board? And then I'll go to JP Lemming.
Hello, thank you. Nathan Crouch, Planning Director. So our typical procedure is to excuse me, mail neighbor notifications out to 300 feet within from the exterior property boundary. And JP Washington, did you say 26 mailed out?
Well, it says a total of 26 notices.
And how many were opposed?
It says of these 12 were opposed and the rest were in favor.
Thank you. In addition to those 26, you know, the ordinance says to mail notices out to 300 feet within from the property boundary, but typically the neighbors take it from there, and that appears to be what happened here. You know, and the neighbors will start talking to their neighbors and get support one way or the other. And on this particular project, we had a petition sent around, and there were over in the neighborhood of 100 signatures. We mapped them, and they come from all over the vicinity. You know, they weren't all from there on Bethel Blacktop. They stretched to miles away. It's my opinion that all the public comments matter, and they count, and they're valid. But if you're talking about the micro community versus the macro, if you will, indeed, it was the immediate neighbors were supportive, but as a whole, a lot of people had an issue with the problem. Now, we've spoken with the fire marshal and the road department, formally and informally, and you know, there's a speeding problem out there in that neck of the woods. You know, people are going to drive real fast out there, and I guess there's a flashing light or even a stoplight out there in that location, and I guess it's known for being run quite a bit. You know, it might just be a matter of activating the police department, the sheriff's department. It might be a matter of upgrading that county road out there. But from the planning department's perspective, you know, we ran it through its paces, and we brought everything that we could to the board, and then you have the results there. So,
JP Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Judge. What was the vote of the planning board?
I believe they approved it unanimously. Yeah. Was it unanimous? Yeah.
Thank you.
In the face of all of the opposition, you know, right here. Now, that meeting, indeed, there were sitting in the aisle, but that was the same meeting we were hearing the dirt pit, and there was a lot of people here for that one.
JP Lemming.
The gentleman that's trying to do this project, he's been all over Washington County trying to do a project. He's tried in Lincoln, he's tried in Prairie Grove, he's tried everywhere. And I'll have to abstain from it, but I'm going to say it. I really liked it, and I like the area where he's putting it, and where he's putting it has been one of the best choices that he's chosen, and I think it's a good spot. The reason I can't have a vote in it because I am working with that guy and maybe doing some dirt work with him, so I don't need to be tied up in the middle of that. But I think the gentleman has got a good deal going, and I think it's a good location for it. And the speeding problem is there right now. It's not because of this coming along. The sheriff does need to maintain that a little better. There's several roads out west that the sheriff needs to work on, and we need to do that. But I think we need to really think about this because the gentleman's done a real good job. He's had it engineered. He's had it looked at. Yeah, the neighbor next to him, I know him well. I built his road. I built his shop pad. I know him fine. His name's Tim, and he didn't like the light being in his bedroom. But you know, we're having growth. We've got a growth problem. They're going to the county because the county is cheaper. He's tried to buy in the cities and it's cost him, he tried in Fayetteville, and there's no way he could do it in Fayetteville. He's tried in Lincoln, he couldn't do it because of the money. And it just, this spot he's picked, I know the people that owns it real well. And so the spot he's picking has been the best, and it's a good business. And we really need to look at it for the children's sake and everybody's sake. Thank you.
Mr. Judge, can I make 2 points real quick? The gentleman that lives next door with the light shining in his window, at the planning board, we added a condition that we'd put a privacy fence up there to block that.
That's correct.
And additionally, J.P. Jenkins, it's 2 courts, not 5. 2 basketball courts.
I think another thing you missed too was the parking got took care of because he had to buy 2.5 more acres to put on, and now he's up to like 74 spots. And so this gentleman has done everything. He's jumped through every hoops. He's done everything the county's asking, and he's trying hard. He's been trying for this deal for about 1.5 years in several different places.
I've heard tell, yes, sir.
And he's doing a good job, I think. I think we need to really look at it and study it a little bit, and we need to let him do it. Thank you.
All right, we got a motion on the floor. All right, J.P. Jenkins.
May I make a motion to table this until the next Quorum Court meeting?
Well, we got after the motion that's
Okay.
already.
No, she can do it.
You want to do a motion to?
To postpone this,
Postpone.
yeah, not table, I'm sorry, to postpone
Okay.
this decision to the next Quorum Court meeting.
Second.
All right, so we got a motion, we'll take the last one first, which would be the motion to table, to postpone until next month. It's Quorum Court meeting, a second by J.P. Madison. All in favor? Those opposed?
No.
All right, Ms. Patty?
Harvey Bowman. Judith Yanez.
Yes.
Patrick Dickens.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington.
No.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Andrea Jenkins.
Yes.
Suki Hires.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Willie Lemming.
Now, this is for what?
Postponing till next month.
Tabling the motion.
Abstain.
Ann Harbison.
No.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Lance Johnson.
No.
Susan Cunningham.
No.
Saying it passes, motion passes.
So it does pass, so we'll push that until next month. All right, was that item number 23? So the Elevate Elite will go on to Quorum Court meeting next month. That's 23. Let's go around committee reports. J.P. Johnson.
Okay, jail and law enforcement met. We opted to postpone the 3 ordinances that we were looking at on the jail expansion until our March 8th meeting. I've asked the sheriff to make a presentation along with our construction consultant and our bond counsel at the March 11 meeting. So that's an opportunity for everybody on the court to show up and get all your questions answered, and we will see if we can make a decision relative to the ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Johnson. J.P. Bowman, County Services.
Yes, County Services met, elected officers, and talked about some current issues, and no decisive actions were taken.
All right. J.P. Pond.
And I have been advised to speak a little more loudly into the microphone. Protest if you will. I wanted to thank Lisa Ecke for her job she's done as the Personnel Committee Chair. She's worked hard, and the work they did on the handbook is very much appreciated by all. At our meeting, our first meeting of the Personnel Committee, we had a report from Blair Johansson, an overview of the salary administration program for the benefit of the new personnel committee members and as a refresher for returning members. Jury administrator position with the circuit clerk's office that had been omitted from the 2019 budget was passed in committee to be added to the current budget, and 4 staff positions from the juvenile court were renamed, with 2 being regraded. The 4 positions were passed in committee to be voted on by the Quorum Court. And that's basically, for the most part, what we did. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pond and J.P. Harbison.
We had a fairly lengthy agenda for finance. All of those things were presented tonight except for one, and we had one that contributions made at the animal shelter. Some of that money was used to buy a vehicle, and we had questions about that, so it will come up at the next finance or service meeting, I'm not sure. We'll ask her to come in and explain how the money was used. And that was, you know, I thought we had a good and fairly quick meeting. Everybody voted, and I appreciate everybody and their contributions to the Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, J.B. Harbison. All right. Motion? Yes.
Judge, if we could, everybody turn the mouse off to help Ms. Burnett so she doesn't have to stay here till midnight turning off all the equipment. She would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
J.P. Lemming?
Is it too late to go back and say one thing about 8.1?
Oh, my God. 8.1.
Well, I just want to make a comment that, and I know.
J.P. Lemming, we passed that one. You can come holler at me.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I'm
J.P. Bowman.
I'd like to let everybody know, if you're not aware, the meetings are on YouTube, even streaming. I went online and watched this CUP request the other night online. I wasn't here in the courtroom, but I observed every piece of testimony and all the facts involved in that case. So if you're not aware, go to YouTube, and it's readily available. All right?
J.P. Madison.
I've had people ask me how to get to that, and I don't know how to tell them.
Here, I'll tell you, if you go to the county's website,
okay,
the main website, at the very bottom, there's the little YouTube logo. If you will hit the YouTube logo, so the bottom left, bottom right, sorry, hit the little YouTube logo, it'll take you directly to the page.
Okay, thanks, because I felt like they ought to be able to access it from our website, okay, thanks.
One additional thing, you might have, if you want to see a specific meeting, you have to put in the date, because otherwise it's all over the place.
Motion? A motion to the second.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.